Your days in college are a stepping stone for the rest of your life. So we want you to succeed, but we want you to have a good time as well. Alcohol is the #1 high-risk behavior that interferes most with a successful college education today. 41% of all academic difficulties are due to high-risk drinking, and 28% of all dropouts are due to high-risk drinking. Now, I'm using the term high-risk drinking. You guys might be more familiar with the term binge drinking. But we're calling it high risk because what we're seeing is that students are consuming so much more alcohol at one time that they're actually putting themselves at risk for getting into some pretty negative situations. What do you think is the #1 reason why college students drink? To get laid. That might be yours, but that's not everybody else's. Thank you. What else? To stress, peer pressure, to loosen up in a social setting. That's #1. And I think it all boils down to self-esteem. If you like yourself well enough, you don't need to have the social lubricant to have a good time. I had to stop drinking in my early 30s because we have a history of esophageal cancer in my family. And I got to the point where I started to get the symptoms that everybody else in my family eventually got. I take a sip of wine, I get really severe heartburn. If you let that heartburn go over the years, it can actually eat away and create lesions in the esophagus, leading to the cancer. My motto, I got one body. I'm going to be good to it, because if I'm good to it, it's good to me. It's my quality of life, my good health. So I now stopped drinking. I'm going into New York with my friends. They're all like, Reverend, how you doing? They're bouncing off the walls. And I'm standing there talking like this. And I'm thinking, how can I relate? But after a while, I learned to be comfortable in my new skin and my new head, my new frame of mind. You ask my husband, you ask my friends, I am the life of the party. I am usually the craziest person there, saying the most outrageous stuff, having a great time, and I'm going over to the sink and I'm filling up with water. And when people have seen me fill up a few times, they finally get it and they'll come up to me and they'll go, you don't drink? And I say, no, I haven't drank in years. And they go, but you're so crazy. And I said, well, I like myself. I'm comfortable with who I am. And then they look at me and they go, we can't imagine what you would be doing if you were drinking. I have good stories, but we don't have time for those now. But I want you to learn to be comfortable with who you are, because studies show that those who use alcohol to loosen up in a social setting under the age of 21, if you start that pattern, you will tend to carry that pattern through your adult life. And these are like the people that can't get out on the dance floor until they've had like 5 beers in their system. So learn how to feel comfortable. Also, I truly believe that our addiction to our cell phones and our devices is also interfering with our ability to easily connect with people who are sitting right next to us. Put it down. Talk to the person next to you. Some of my most meaningful friendships have developed that way. How many drinks in a row does a guy have to consume within a 2-hour period of time that will make him legally drunk? Anybody? 15, you'll be dead. 5, all right? If a guy consumes 5 drinks within a 2-hour period of time, he will be legally drunk. How many for a female? 4, right? Women are drinking a little more than we have seen in the past. So if women consume 4 drinks in a 2-hour period of time, she will be legally drunk. Now, how many of you have been at parties where you see a girl trying to do as many shots or a beer as a guy? Anybody? What happens to her? She's done. They throw up. Yeah, that's really appealing. You really want to kiss her after that, don't you? Ladies, you cannot keep up with the guys. Here's why. We have a higher ratio of the body fat than the men do. And the alcohol actually gets stored and collected in the fatty tissue of the body, and it's not broken down and released as quickly. Plus, we have a lower amount of the enzyme that actually breaks down the alcohol. So don't try to keep up with the guys. We just can't physically do it. Now, let's talk about quantities. So let's repeat it. 5 ounces of wine, right? How many ounces of hard liquor? How many ounces of beer? 12. Here's the problem. We are drinking from larger containers than we had in the past. What is the favorite cup of choice at most parties? Not jungle juice. No. Let me repeat that. What is the favorite cup of choice at most parties? Red Solo cup. How many ounces are in that red Solo cup? 16 to 18, depending on how high you fill it. So you did not just have a beer. You had a beer and a third. Here's the problem. The body can only clear or break down 1 drink per hour. And when you're pounding down the drinks at a much faster rate than that, you now force the brain to absorb the excess alcohol. And when the brain is absorbing the excess alcohol, you systematically shut down one area of the brain after another. The area of the brain that shuts down first is in charge of our higher rational thinking. It's up here by our forehead, called the prefrontal cortex. It doesn't even develop until you're 25 years old. So now you're already messing with an area of the brain that's not fully mature. All right, so it's in charge of emotions, impulse control, long-term planning, being able to assess situations, read social cues. So people end up doing things that they would not normally do. People end up doing things that they regret. I hear the stories, like the guy at a campus in Maryland. He stands up, he's peeing all over the couch on the student lounge. We don't pee on couches when we're sober. If we do, you have some issues. So we want you to stay clear so you can have control of what is going on. So we've got catching a light buzz is different. And what the rule of thumb is, no more than 1 alcoholic beverage an hour. And you alternate it with a non-alcoholic beverage. You're accomplishing 2 things. You're giving the body a chance to clear out the alcohol before it has a chance to overwhelm and shut down the brain. Plus, you're rehydrating your brain and your body. Because the area of the brain that shuts down secondly regulates the amount of fluid in your body. So you urinate out more than you're taking in. And you literally dehydrate the body, and you literally dehydrate the brain. The area of the brain that shuts down after that regulates your coordination. So now we got the slurred speech, and we're staggering all over the place. And we're getting closer to 0.08. And basically, we see 500,000 college students across this country who are physically injured each year as a result of consuming too much alcohol. We see people with head injuries, broken bones, needing stitches. And we see 1,825 accidental deaths from the high-risk drinking. We see DUIs. We have people that fall off balconies, people who drown in like maybe a pond or a river that might be close to them. It's usually a person who is left to go off by themselves, and their friends are not watching out for them. A kid at Penn State, he didn't show up in his room one night, and they knew he was drunk. His roommate passed him on the quad. We make quick assessments, and when we're wasted, sometimes our assessments aren't always accurate. Who's going to look out for everybody if everybody's getting wasted? So he didn't show up, and the next day he was still missing. So that Sunday, they started to comb the campus, and they found his body at the bottom of a stairwell. He had fallen down the stairs and broke his neck and died from that. What we also see is the alcohol poisoning. How many of you guys have been at parties where someone's passed out and you can't get them to come to? Anybody? All right. So much alcohol has now flooded into the brain that you now shut down this area back here called the medulla. And the medulla is the brainstem. It regulates your involuntary reflexes, your heart rate, your respiration. If somebody is passed out, they're cold, they're clammy, the skin will be a pale color, the lips will be a bluish color. You can't shake them awake. You can't shout them awake. They need to get 911 medical attention immediately. We've lost too many students. In fact, we lose on average 300 across this country each year from this type of scenario, where the friends are like, well, let's let them sleep it off because if we call for help, we're going to get busted for underage drinking. So then they come and check on them. The person is shut down and they're dead. And we now have medical amnesty in place. If you call for help for somebody who is passed out, and you've been drinking, they will not press charges against you because we do not want to discourage you from getting that help that that person so badly needs.